how about training our captains to be leaders instead of just promoting firefighters who hate paramedics and still, think they're one of the guys. You're not one of the guys. You're the leader.
Welcome to episode number 53 of the First Responder Wellness Podcast. My name is Conrad Weaver. I'm so grateful that you joined us today. Hey, is there a leadership problem in the first responder community? Well, my guest today says, yes, there is. Today, I'm honored to welcome Morgan Englund to the show. Morgan's journey is a unique one, and he transitioned from a successful acting career in Hollywood to serve as a paramedic and firefighter. And now he's here to share his powerful experiences from those years on the front lines. Our conversation dives deep into leadership within the fire service and explores some unconventional healing modalities that have played a crucial role in his own recovery and wellness. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to clarify something important. I'm not a doctor or a mental health professional, and the views expressed by my guests are entirely their own. That said, I believe it's valuable to hear diverse perspectives, especially when it comes to topics as complex and personal as first responder wellness. Morgan's experiences might resonate deeply with some of you, while others may find a different perspective, but that's okay. I encourage you to listen with an open heart and mind, and together we can learn from one another and hopefully inspire the changes needed to support the health and well-being of first responders. So stay tuned for this important conversation. Hey, if you enjoy this show, please subscribe. And if you haven't already, invite your tribe to join in as well. We drop a new episode every Wednesday, and so share the link if you find this content helpful and informative. And thanks again for being here. And now here's my conversation with Morgan Englund. Well, Morgan, welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. So glad we can connect today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really glad to be here.
You have an audience of first responders, and so I want them to know a little bit more about you. What's your background, and how are you connected to first responders?
Well, I was an actor for a long time, and then that was a good career, but I had two little kids, and it's like, I need to get something steady, and something that I can be proud of. And so I became a paramedic, and then that's really what I wanted to do, be in the medical field, first responders as a medical, but the money's in the fire department, and everyone's going to the fire department. So I went to the fire department. I mean, I thought firefighters just barbecued all day and, went to the schools and shut off the engine and stuff. Boy, was I wrong.
Slept all night, right?
Yeah. Just the kumbaya all day, hot dogs and yeah. I got hired with the LA Fire Department, LA City. And I did 13 and a half years there. Started at 41, actually. So a little late getting into the game, but I felt like I gave it everything I had. And then after about 13 and a half, 14 years, I said, this is an end of the road for me in this line of work. Mm-hmm. So
what was it about the work? What was it about your experiences there that kind of was like, maybe this isn't for me after all?
I think the biggest thing, what we all believe when we join as first responder, cop, firefighter, whatever it may be, is that we're joining a sort of a brotherhood, where no matter what happens, we take care of each other. And we do in a lot of ways, but I found it to be much more of tearing each other down, constantly, pressing each other. And, that's great for a while, but, it just gets old. And I had a few things happen, several, all throughout my career that just disgusted me. And really, I'm not going to blame anybody. I mean, what happened with me is that I got burnt out, I got angry, and really isolated. I think any of us that are going through something, you have to hide it, you have to shove it down, you have to be fit for duty, and so we just shove it all down, and I had no more room in me to keep shoving it down, and so I just walked away. I said, "Thank you very much." but my time is done. And I mean, I watched myself dying in front of my own eyes, certainly aging. And I just thought, I had 3 friends of mine, people that I trained with and worked with, commit suicide. I got very low. I mean, I wasn't there, at least not then. About 2 years after I left, I think it really came crashing down. And that's when my sort of healing began, healing journey.
Yeah. If we can go back to the beginning, you came out of an acting career. And so what was the inspiration to then choose the fire service? What was that? Why? What was it about that was attractive to you?
Well, let me say, even in acting, I never was going to get into acting. My mother was an actress, and I didn't want to be the son of or have anything to do with that. But when I found it, and I found how powerful it was in terms of changing people's lives, the ability to do that at times, that was what was important to me, to transport people, to take them out of the world they're in, to give something. I went to New York. Most of my whole career was in New York because the art of it and and what I wanted to do, the types of the theater and things like that it really changed my life in different ways, and certain actors. And so that was the way that I approached that. So coming into the first responder field, it was just a natural progression. I mean, I think any of us that get into that field, we're always, even from a young age, protectors, defenders. We don't take shit, and we don't sit by while other people are, getting abused or intimidated or hurt. So
did in your experience in your early years when you were even in the academy, was there any kind of training and teaching about, mental health, wellness, any kind of processes like that you needed to know?
No, not that I remember. Nothing about that. And honestly, there were a few incidents, when you have those big mass casualty incidents where the department psychologist comes around and nobody's going to talk to them. They haven't walked in our shoes. And having witnessed what we just witnessed, to share it with somebody that's not in the field, that doesn't understand it, very rarely is that going to happen, or even, I think, help. So, no, just to answer your question, we got a lot more to cover, but I don't want to get off on a tangent.
Yeah. So now that you're out of it, looking back, what are some things you wish you'd have known back then?
Oh, well, how to, when you walk in the station or even in the academy, the guys are throwing shots at you. It's things you wouldn't say to somebody on the street because you get your ass kicked. I mean, you wouldn't. You don't know me, man. How can you possibly say that to me? But, I mean, making this job was everything to me. I had 2 young kids. So whatever it took, I had to bite back my type of response. But, other people, they know that game, especially if they've been in the fire world before, of that kind of banter. And it's great for a while, but you really get, it's really heavy stuff. It's not a joke. It seems mostly designed to really just get you to the point where you'll break, and it's every day. And it's just like, dude, I got to prove this every time I walk through the door. Can't we, move on?
Yeah. Was there something that you wish you'd have known back then that now that would have helped you?
I think that might have helped me, and not internalize that so much and carry so much anger without a way to offload it and express it. But more than that, I'd like to see a whole shift in the culture, because I don't think you need to be macho and do all, it's a job. We just do our job, Yeah, you need to suck it up. You need to get through the fire. You need to be able to do that. But that's not all day, every day. And one analogy that just came to me the other day is that, when we eat food, we get full, and then eventually we got to take a dump, and and then we're ready to go, right? Well, we're shoving all this emotional stuff down and shoving it down and shoving it down, but we never release it.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to that?
Mm-hmm.
Becomes cancer, heart disease, diabetes, mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important we're humans, whether we want to admit to it or not, we are. Mm-hmm. We're just as susceptible to anything as any other human being. Mm-hmm. And you can, sorry, let me just,
no, go ahead.
You can see that by this statistic that more first responders die by suicide than any other cause, or certainly that die in the field or
right.
killed in the line of duty. Right. So that's staggering. That is a staggering statistic. This is the best job in the world. This is something you sacrifice, work for, dream about. And when you get it, you've won the lottery. So why there's a disconnect here? And I think a big part of it is this pervasive culture of, we have to be tough and strong. Well, be tough and strong. But part of that is being human and, and sharing our humanity.
Mm-hmm. And, why do you think that it has historically been such a negative thing for someone to take care of themselves within that community? I mean, they work out, you're at the gym, you're pumping iron, but as far as mentally fit and mental health, why do you think it's such a disconnect there?
I think it has to do with the nature of the job, where you have to make sure people have the mentality, the emotional intelligence, the strength, the fortitude to do the job.
Tell me about a day, an event, an experience you had as a first responder that brings you joy.
Oh man, so much. I mean, the job itself is just so much fun. Tillering, driving the tiller. I was the paramedic on the truck, so that was really the only spot. So I got to do that most of my career, and I like being on the roof. Cutting a hole on a roof and knocking down the fire, and then taking that moment afterwards and seeing the moon setting, on the horizon from the top of an apartment building, something like that. Just incredible moments and places in the city you never see. The people that the clients, or patients or whatever, interacting with the public, and training, and I mean, it was so much fun. I think there's and what's really a bummer is that I walked away from there with just carrying so much anger and embarrassment, humiliation, just feeling like a failure. Little did I know that a lot of the guys on the job right now are just going, man, I wish I had done what you did. And, finding that it took a lot of courage to do that. But it's a bummer because some of these things that happened in my career really overshadowed the joy and the accomplishments that I did have.
Mm-hmm. So what is your passion today? What are you focused on? How are you staying healthy and well today? And that's kind of a two-part question, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I just play, I go out and shoot my bow. I cleared out a field up there in the hills and nobody ever goes there. So that's something that I always wanted to do as a kid is, have a bow, and was having a lot of fun doing that. Surf, mountain bike, anything that's fun. Mm-hmm. For me, going into the gym and doing reps is not as fun. So just trying to stay light. We got into sound meditation, yoga and stuff like that, and became a sound practitioner, which is actually.
And I haven't heard that. What is that? What is this?
Have you heard of the sound bath?
Not really.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't either until this happened to me. But I basically it's overtonal instruments like Tibetan singing bowls, the gong, drone instrument like shruti box, and percussive instruments like buffalo drum and things like that. The way that it was done for me, and the way that I was taught to do it is basically you start with some breathing, some deep breathing, and that in itself can transport you to a different place. Then you get into one instrument, say the buffalo drum, and just really the vibrations and the frequency are so. What we're finding out about sound now, or what we're rediscovering about sound, because I think we knew this in ancient times a lot more than we know about it now. But the frequency, in fact, they're curing cancer. Certain frequencies are just exploding these cells and stuff like that. So it's just powerful, powerful stuff. And it's really about the frequencies. All matter has frequency or vibration. And so it's kind of like tuning your body, the different chakras, the different organs, all the different pieces of you have different frequencies. And a cell that's diseased or injured is vibrating at a diseased or injured frequency. And this range of frequencies come in. It's like keys that just bring it back into harmony. So if your body is in discord, it brings it back into harmony. If you're carrying a lot of trauma, that trauma clearly has a frequency, because when it's exposed to these other frequencies, my body was literally going through convulsions, like full on, like a seizure, like hanging on for dear life at one point. And then eventually it just calmed down, and I was totally relaxed, and I could just feel it leaving my body, in pieces. Each instrument was another aspect of, and it's not just the fire, but it's all our whole life, trauma. Yeah. I mean, childhood trauma and all of it, so anyway, it's really powerful stuff.
So what's that look like practically? I mean, you walk into the room, and what are you doing? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
So my sister actually told me, she set this up for me. She goes, show up at this guy's house tomorrow. Just wear comfortable clothes. So I did, and met him, and we sat down and talked for a little while. And he said, I'm going to give you some magic mushrooms and some MDMA. And then you're going to lie down, and we're going to listen to a little meditation. We're going to do some breathing, and then I'll start into the instruments. And these supplements is what they call them, have a couple of different actions. The MDMA, they're using ketamine now because it's legal for a lot of the stuff. If you're licensed for trauma, PTSD, and what the ketamine does is it shuts down the amygdala, or the amygdala is what regulates our fear.
Right.
And so it basically stops that regulation, so that when, let's say you have a traumatic incident that you want to suppress, but you can't now because it's going to come out. And once it comes out, then it can go away. And the mushrooms, the psilocybin, they're doing a ton of studies with PTSD and veterans and everything. And that works with the neuroplasticity. I mean, it literally helps to rewire your brain in a healthy way. We get these grooves as we relive these experiences over and over. These grooves get deeper, and we relive. All the same chemicals are released, the hormones and neurotransmitters, and our body goes through a physiological response as if we were going through the incident again in real time. And so this is just it's like a shortcut. It's like 30 years of therapy in 5 hours. So that's how it went. And all I can say is the next day I was a different person, and have been since. Yeah, I go through ups and downs, but that darkness that I was, the gray world I was walking through, it's filled with color now, and not because of the psychedelics, but just because it's not in me anymore. And this weight that I felt that I was carrying is just gone. So,
and it's important, I guess, to have someone that's a practitioner or someone that's licensed to kind of do these things.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. You want to be associated with the doctor and all that stuff. And they're doing work in Mexico. There's some retreats and things there and different places around the world. But this is not for everybody, and but at the same time, I think getting rid of some of the stigma around it, and because it's not about, what's a drug, what's a medicine? Who defines that? The drug companies? That's great, right? Well, they won't, they'll quash any drug that they can't make money off of. And I mean, you've seen it since I was young, and I've dealt my mom with different types of healers, that the pharmaceutical companies were coming after him. I mean, straight out, threatening, and it was scary with the stories that I heard. So there's no doubt. And look at the money they're making now. It's so corrupt and so sick. And I'm not bound by, I'll decide for myself what's a medicine, what's a drug. You can abuse Tylenol.
Sure.
I've had a ton of overdoses on acetaminophen. And you were like, wow, you're dead. It might take you 2 weeks, but so this works, and I'd love to share it with first responders that are struggling. This is it's like a restart, a reset, and but I think what I'm really working on right now is peer support and the idea of peer support, and really that's brotherhood, right? It's talking to people that have the same lived or similar lived experience, and there's nothing like that. I remember a couple of years after I'd left the department, I was really just lost. And a guy I worked with worked a lot of SOD with overtime duty. We were both paramedics, so anytime you're working overtime, you're always on the rescue. So we spent a lot of time together. And anyway, he called me. He had a golden career. I mean, perfect career. He had mentors. He just sailed through. Great career. Well, he's hanging on by his fingernails right now. And she's telling me stories about these other tough firefighters, that are barely making it. And the scope of the problem was just wow. But also to talk to him, it was a whole different thing. And it just, the shorthand, the lived experience, it was very healing to talk to him. And the other times that I've done that, especially recently, have really shown me how important that is. And, bringing it back to the firehouse, if we can bring that into the firehouse, we're human. Let's stop pretending, you're not leaving your feelings at home when you come to work or on the off ramp on your way to work. They're there right in your gut. So, and you can keep stuffing it down, but what's the point?
So in your experience with peer support, especially, I know a few years ago, I was invited to an AA meeting down in Washington, DC. And, that was my first time I ever went to an AA meeting, and it was transformative for me to see people supporting each other, from all races and all walks of life there in the room, and just being totally brutally honest with each other. Do you think sometimes that's what's lacking within the first responder community, is that honesty and openness with each other?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and if you do say something that's taboo, you're gonna take a lot of shit for it. So yeah.
And so how do you change that? How do you change that kind of culture?
Well, it's a great question. And in the talks that I'm writing a talk right now, I never was going to talk about this, like ever. But things have changed. I've found people and the statistics has really changed everything. So coming up with kind of the main point of my talk, what's or the call to action, what do we do about this? Well, what I found in the other first responders, cops, firemen, whatever, departments don't care. It's not something they're going to deal with. They'll have a whatever, the guy, the department psychiatrist or something like that. But in fact, I just found this out. I think in California, only 25% of PTSD claims get, approved. So, and it takes hours or months and months and all this stuff. So that whole system is completely broken. So I've really been thinking about where do we change this culture? How do we change it? It's not the departments. It's not the chiefs. It's not the bureaucracy. What I think it's like for firefighters, it would be the captain, because that's the leader of the team that's out there doing it. and they're together at least 24 hours a day, right? And the captain sets the tone. The captain dictates how each person is treated in the crew. Like if the captain is throwing shots at one guy, then the rest of the crew is going to go into a feeding frenzy on that guy. And by the same token, if the captain's blowing smoke up the other person's butt, even if it's a rookie, then all the rest of the crew is like, "Oh, you're so great." And so the captain, to me, has the most influence, and once if the captain can show vulnerability, show humanity, like a lineup in the morning, or in some way, then the rest of it cues the rest of the crew. So let's say, and like what we're doing here, we're telling our stories. Well, somebody might hear this story or say, "Wow, that guy's actually talking about this. No, nobody does that." Well, maybe I should tell my story. That's how it happened with me. When I first started looking around to see if anyone was talking about mental health and first responders, found this one video, connected with the guy, and then he's been connecting. We've been connecting with other people, but he goes, "Look, man, look what happened by me telling my story. You found a way to get in touch with me and reach out and join forces with me or whatever, to build this sort of fabric, this connection of people, this network of people that are doing it, that are we're going to take care of each other, because that's what we do." And in almost every case, I see that the department or their crews or whatever have dropped the ball. I mean, they get fired for a shooting or they get whatever. Nobody calls. You're on your own.
So how can captains learn this behavior and to change that culture? I mean, what can you do to help captains understand this?
That's a great point. So a couple of buddies of mine just made captain, and I asked them, "What leadership training did you have?" 0. You can take it. They offer it. It's based on the West Point model. But you have to do it off duty and on your own and unpaid.
That's crazy, because that's a big part of your job is to be a leader, right? When you're the captain.
That's the whole job. I mean, a monkey can place companies,
Yeah.
We just, so I'm not saying that. No, obviously it takes, that's one huge, very important aspect of it. But the day-to-day with the crews, with the taking care of the humans that are under your care, that's a huge responsibility. And I think that's where not just my department, but from what I've heard of cops and firemen, that seems to be the point. The inflection point is with the captain and how the captain behaves. So how about training our captains to be leaders instead of just promoting firefighters who hate paramedics and still, think they're one of the guys? You're not one of the guys. You're the leader. So you need to be a leader and not one of the guys. You can't be down here in the locker room and all this stuff. You're in the front office. You're the leader. Be the leader and don't be a dick. The things that I've seen happen, not seen, experienced, came straight from the captains. I never thought I would tell this story ever, but I was at this one station, and for whatever reason, they wanted me out of there, this crew. And I'd seen, there's a whole history of this with this crew, the older guys and stuff. And captain said, "I want to, hey, let's go have coffee out on the patio after dinner." I was like, bitching, this guy hasn't paid 1 minute of attention to me. So we sit down, he goes, "How's it going for you here?" I said, "Great, I'm working, I'm out on the hydrant every day by myself, training to, get certified on the engine and stuff." He goes, "Yeah, we see how hard you're working, really appreciate that, but you don't fit in here, and one of us is leaving, and it's not going to be me." And I said, "Okay, thank you for telling me. I appreciate that." I put in a transfer request, but I couldn't get, I cannot believe I'm telling this story. I couldn't, we had like brownouts. staffing shortages.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no lateral movement. There were only 2 places open downtown, and I'd been there, raising 2 young kids, needed to be closer to home. So I just kept going, kept working hard, and looking for that transfer, which never came. And things really ratcheted up. The situations they'd put me in, not totally unprepared, doing something way out of my scope of practice, all kinds of different things, and really almost pretty much hostile environment coming to work every day. And then one day, I got called into the front office in the evening after dinner, and I thought things might be turning around because I'd been working well, hadn't gotten, everybody'd been kind of laying off for the last 3 weeks. So come to the office, there's 2 captains' desks, and they're sitting here. I'm coming in here. There's 1 chair in the middle of the room between the desks. There's 1 light on the chair. Full on interrogation scene, and I went, oh shit. So he goes, come in, sit down. We're going to talk and you're going to listen. He starts talking about, I heard the word hospital or hospitals, nurses, and I'm just like racking my brain. What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And it finally becomes clear that he's somehow accusing me of sexual harassment. It's very vague, and there's no person, or there may be, I don't know. Eventually he goes, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I said, I don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. And so he's like, and he sits back in his chair. And he's like, well, let's change the subject. And, I know you've been trying to transfer out. I go, there's 2 stations open. I'll put in there. Sure, I'll get one. Are we good? He said, yeah. So I went in and put my transfer requests in, and left there with my tail between my legs, feeling just, I don't even know how I felt. I just had to move on. And then the next station place is it's known as the Hammer House. So at least I knew what I was getting into. And I loved working down there. It's you're in it, it's 20 calls a day, and,
wow.
It's intense. And I love that. To see a captain, a supervisor, a guy that I look to protect me, to protect all of us, to lift me up, lift all of us up, to bring us together as a team. Big fat F on that. And he's hugely respected in the department. Last I saw him, he was a battalion chief. He's probably an AC now, and he's a good guy. That's the kind of stuff, that'll break you, man.
Yeah.
It certainly broke me. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, but I didn't care anymore. If prior to that, my captain said, hey, jump off that building, I would just fucking run and jump off it. But yeah, we're humans,
Yeah.
He's human. But I think this idea of training to be leaders is kind of a big deal, you know?
I mean, you would think that, people are your most important resource, right? For any company, any business, any organization, it's the people. And if you don't know how to take care of the people, then you're not taking care of your most important asset.
Absolutely.
And it's shocking that organizations don't focus on that.
Time after, these stories that I heard, this is why this thought came in earlier, and it messed me up when I forgot your question, but this is the thought that I had earlier. And it's that every single one of these stories, people had been shunned or, whatever, when they'd had a problem, their department didn't want to know about it, shuffled them off, and eventually, they're gone or whatever. But you've got these people that you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars training and equipping, people that have over 10 years of experience, sometimes 10, 15, 20 years of experience, and they have a problem. If they had a broken leg, then you get them fixed up, go to physical therapy, get them back 100%. They got a mental problem, see ya, bye-bye. They're willing to throw all of that away, all that money away, all that experience away, because they just want to deal with it. So And in my case, I didn't even think about this, but I came back I was off duty with a double hernia operation. And that's when I decided I don't want to go back to work. So I came back to work. I told my captains, hey, I'm going to be leaving. And, they were kind of surprised and like, when, let's say 6 months. So we picked a date 6 months out. So for 6 months I was on the job. They know that I'm leaving on this date. And not one person in the fire department, not one leader in the fire department ever even asked me why. This didn't occur to me, but, since we're talking about the subject, I'm not saying they let me down or anything, but if you've got over a 10-year vested firefighter and you're just going to let them walk out the door without any, even asking why, or, is there anything we can do, or just why? Why would this guy be leaving? Nobody does that. So there must be a reason. How about maybe something's going on in my family that, I got to leave. They'll never know. Could have been something we could have fixed. I don't know. It kind of makes you go, okay, well, yeah. So it's just kind of, why don't they want to fix the problem? Why are they willing to throw that all away instead of fixing the problem and bringing somebody back with now that's got even more experience that can offer more to the department? So it's a question I don't know the answer to, but it seems to be pervasive.
Part of what I want to do with this podcast is to help have these conversations and, find solutions for some of these things, especially in leadership, because I see everywhere I go, and I travel across the country, bringing my documentary, and I meet with people in the fire industry, people in law enforcement, communications, and everyone everywhere says we have a leadership problem. It all goes back to leadership.
Wow.
And so, thinking about that, what can we do to help solve that problem? I listen to some podcasts, I read some books, from leadership gurus. And I think some of these resources that I've read probably would be good for some of these first responder leaders to dive into. And I'm going to see if I can get some of these folks on my podcast so that we can have these deeper conversations and perhaps maybe move the needle in the right direction.
Yeah. Where do you see that we could affect change in this department, so that so we can really be living our best life while we're doing the best job in the world? How can we pull those two things together instead of sacrificing our life for the best job in the world and then having 5 or 10 years of a miserable existence until you die?
And I see, and actually one of my friends is a police chief up in Pinole, California, up in San Francisco Bay Area, Chief Neil Gang, and he's been on the program before, and he's in my documentary, and he has a talk that is really, really powerful, and I wish everyone could hear his talk. In fact, I helped host a conference here a couple of weeks ago here in Maryland, and he was the closing keynote. And I wish now I would have recorded that closing keynote, because man, it was so powerful. And he just speaks directly to the leaders. He's like, we have a leadership problem. We need to step up as leaders to be the example. He said, everything starts with us. And I think that even with those captains, in your department, it starts with the people above them. And the people above them, because it trickles down. And I think perhaps there's going to be a change as new people come up through the ranks and they see some of these things, especially when it comes to mental health. I think that it can affect change. For example, I was in Mississippi a couple of months ago. We had a screening of my documentary, and a fire chief was there, kind of a younger guy, had risen through the ranks, and he was kind of come up to me with his arms folded, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't think I had a problem until I saw your movie."
Wow.
And so, well, what has happened? And so I had a deeper conversation with him. I said, when you were a young firefighter, you wanted to be on the nozzle, right? He goes, damn right. That's where you want to be. If you're a young rookie, you want to be the first one in the door, on the nozzle. I said, well, as a chief, you can be the first one on the nozzle when it comes to wellness and mental health and leadership, because they're going to follow you in.
Yeah, I kind of disagrey with that a little bit, because when you're rank and file, you're looking up at the chiefs, and everyone's always bitching about the chiefs, what they do and stuff. So, what they're doing is that there's a lot of this DEI stuff, which is like the opposite of inclusion and all that stuff. And they're putting that in the departments, and I don't think that's helpful. So, in the way that I looked at it, looking at myself as a frontline firefighter, and the chiefs and whatever they're doing, we just don't trust them. We don't trust our chiefs because they're political animals. Most of the people that promote that high they know how to work the system. And they're about themselves. They're about politics. That's what I've found almost and so it's really, to me, it's about the people doing the job. And their supervisor, their direct supervisor. And yes, it can trickle down to some degree, but you got to get the members to buy into it. So how do you do that? Well, a chief coming into the station and telling a sad story about something that happened to him, it's like, yeah, well, you're a pussy. You're a chief. So, I mean, that's just kind of in the back of the head, like we're out here doing it. And so that's why I really feel strongly that it's got to come from the bottom up, and especially that the most bottom leadership, which would be, in the case of a fire department, a captain, maybe a lieutenant, or whatever you call it, but it's the supervisor of those people. And I might be wrong, but I'm really trying to figure out, well, how do we change this? How do we start to affect change? And to me, just being brutally honest, that's how I would see it from a firefighter standpoint, looking up, going, there's not the kind of respect that you would have. So I'm sure in some departments there are, but
probably those smaller departments really, where the chief is more hands-on,
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Or, and they're great chiefs. There's amazing people. Look, we're all people, but I'm speaking in generalities. Sure. So, and I'm not speaking specifically about any department or anything, but from what I've seen in terms of leadership and how we could affect change, I see that the departments don't care across the board. I have reverted very few where they're really supporting their members. So let's take that out of the equation. The next level is the chiefs and stuff like that. And they're not really interacting with us. So let's take them out of the equation. This is the people that you don't hear about chiefs committing suicide. These are frontline workers on the front line. This is who it's happening to. So this is where I think we could really affect the changes, getting those captains or leaders to start becoming human and showing their crews that there's more strength in sharing our humanity than denying it.
So what would you say to those frontline firefighters that are where you were? What would you say to them right now for what they can do to move the needle?
It's very, very tough. But if they're getting an understanding, somehow helping them to understand just what I said before, that showing our humanity, having a vulnerability with each other, makes us a stronger team, a stronger firefighter, stronger cop, stronger human. And that shoving it all down, and because if I acknowledge your problems, that means I got to acknowledge my problems. So instead we just walk right by each other, and we're self-contained units, literally. And yet we're working as a team. So you've got all these individuals working as a team. But as far as I know, in special forces and things like that, they don't operate like that. They know about each other. They know what's going on. They have to, because they got to know what the weaknesses are, what the strengths are, so we can help a brother out. We can plug in where they're falling down, or they can plug in when we're falling down or we're weak. That's what teamwork is about. We're going to have moments when we're weak, when we're tired, when we're exhausted, when we're hurt, when we're hurting, and that's the time for the rest of the team to pick it up. And to be able to be honest about that would make us, I believe, make us a much stronger team, and make you really excited to come into work. So it's that little thing there. I think challenging them to say, that whole idea about not having any feelings and stuff, that just shows me how weak you are. You think you're tough. Let me see some, tell me about something that you care about, that you love. I don't know, something, again, on a human level. So it's, how do we change it? I think that's one way, is to kind of challenge, because if you come at it like, hey, we need to be vulnerable with each other, and just sit and look into each other's eyes and listen, actively listen. That's just not going to go over.
I can see that going over well.
Yeah, right. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, you think you're tough? Can you go in the bathroom and cry and then come back and go on your call? If you needed to, could you? I don't know, whatever it is. But I love that. I love that analogy about a bowel movement. Having an emotional bowel movement. Hey man, then we're even better. We're better off. We're lighter. We're not carrying that. It's gone. We can operate at a higher frequency.
So finally, what's one thing that someone can do to get them on a better place, in mental health and wellness?
There's two kind of ways. There's going out when you're off duty and doing whatever you do, whether it's yoga, meditation, cold baths, whatever it might be, the way that you offload it. But that still keeps us apart and individualized, So to me, what can we do at work as a crew to alleviate some of the stuff that people are carrying? Because if you can come into work and know that you're in a safe place, that you're going to be supported, and that you're going to take a chance and support somebody else, then this whole dynamic changes. Right now, we're all so tough that, and I just don't really understand why. You've already proved that you're tough. You can do the job, so what do you have to prove every single day? And there's so much insecurity in cops and firemen. I mean, that's probably why a lot of us become that, to have a badge on our chest and the lapels and all that. So, there is a lot of that mentality, but somehow getting through. And I think the mental health thing, how do you do it? I want to see it happening at work. I want to see it happening on a day-to-day basis at work. That's where because then if we had that, then, whatever these people are going through at the time, they've got this brotherhood. They've got people around them that they can count on. And so they're never going to isolate and, pull apart, isolate, and then spiral down to the point where they got a gun in their mouth waiting to pull the trigger. It doesn't need to get that. The problem is that there's such a stigma attached to it that, we don't say anything, we hide it, we shove it down, and then we separate. And separation from community is one of the 5 core human fears. So it's a big deal to feel outside of the group. And I think that's a really huge aspect of it, is that by having a brotherhood or creating this brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever the hell you want to call it, it's a safety net, we got you, we got each other. And we're not going to let you fall, man. We're not going to let you go down there. If we could create that kind of environment, man, this would be the best job in the world. And we could really flip the script, like maybe have the lowest suicide rate of any job description,
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. I really hope that we can see that and see that accomplished. I think if we can get one agency to work like that, perhaps it'll spread.
Yeah. It's starting. The little cracks are forming, fissures, and people are talking about it, and people have had enough. I couldn't really stand up for myself at the time. I just ended up completely isolating, just completely stepping back. But there are other people that are vocal and they're strong and they're like, yeah, I want help. I'm not okay. I couldn't do that. I'm just, but that's awesome that people are doing it and making it, even for me, saying, really, you're going to talk about that? Wow. Okay. Well, maybe I will too then, because I've got something to say as well. Yeah. So yeah, man, I hope we can lift people up. I hope we can flip this statistic and really help first responders live meaningful, purposeful lives. And, by the time they retire, they've got a great retirement and their head's in a good place and they're proud of their career. And, that's the kind of thing that I see that we should be doing, for first responders. Yeah. So
awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to share about you and, where are you speaking and anything like that?
Yeah, I'm working on this speech. I definitely want to start speaking at first responder conferences and events and functions like that. Again, this is not the subject that I was going to speak about, but in doing it, it's like, okay, well, I can't speak. This is what I have to speak about. This is, so it's interesting and it's difficult and it brings up a lot. And for me right now in the creative process of writing the speech, just really going deep, and it's hard, man. It's hard to do that. But I don't know. I might be doing a TEDx talk in November. Don't know yet. I'm waiting to find out. So that's exciting. And doing podcasts like this, just trying to get the message out. If you'd like to see me or any more about me, it's Morgan Englund, ENGLUND.com. You can reach me there and find out a little more. And then my son Jackson and I started a company called Mystic Harmonies. It's mysticharmonies.com. So if you're interested in checking this out, we'll do like a 15-minute Zoom sound journey for you. Anybody that wants to check it out and see about it. And then we could take it from there. But that's what we offer. It's 15-minute. So wherever you are in the world, you can relax for 15 minutes, see what this is about. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Very good. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thanks for your insight and for your conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Conrad, it was a blast. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you, brother.
Be sure to check out Morgan's website to learn more about him, and you can find that link in the show notes below. And thank you for listening and for watching. Just a reminder that I'm here every Wednesday with a brand new podcast episode, so be sure to tune in again next week. And please remember, you are not alone. If you need someone to talk to and don't know where you can turn, you can dial 988 for help. There are people standing by to listen. Until next time, be well, take care of yourself and those around you, and go out and do something great in the world.